The content creator's impossible triangle. What does that mean? It means this is what the content creator is faced with. They need quality, they need speed, and they need scale. But the problem is, if you go for quality, your speed and scale suffer. If you go for speed, you're likely sacrificing quality. If you go for scale, you're probably going for very expensive quality. It's all time consuming, and very few tools pull that together into one tool. So what do we do about it? Introducing the N8N AI SEO Content Engine. What is it? It's an N8N workflow content engine. It conducts thorough keyword research using data for SEO. It develops strategic content plans automatically, and from those you can generate quality content at scale. If you've watched some of my previous videos or purchased some of my previous workflows, I sincerely thank you for doing that. They've all been combined into a single workflow. But if you've purchased the ones before, you'll recognize some new features that I think you'll appreciate. So I decided, instead of one long video, to do a couple of shorter videos. So there's going to be 4. The first one is this one, which is an overview and a live demonstration. The second video is the setup and basic usage guide. The third one is a deeper dive into keyword research and content strategies. And the fourth one is the AI writing system, a deeper dive into that. So before we get into the workflow itself, here's a basic block diagram of the workflow. You can see here it all starts in Airtable. Airtable is used as the user interface and the data storage and access device. So is basically very similar to a database. It sits in between spreadsheet and real database. But you can also use it as a user interface, which I've done here, and I will show you how. The next part of it is an N8N switch, which I do want to give credit where it is due. This part was inspired by the Ben AI SEO Agency Workflow in a Box workflow. So I saw what he did with that, and I've decided to use that in this workflow as well. And what it does is it takes a request from Airtable, so there's a trigger there. It hits the N8N webhook. This switch looks for the type of request that was made and then routes it to the appropriate part of the workflow. Let's say you want to do keyword research. You take that action in Airtable. It flows from Airtable to the switch. It's routed to the keyword research section of the workflow. Similarly, if you want to create a content strategy, you select that in Airtable and it's routed to that part of the workflow. If you want to write an article, you select that in Airtable and it's routed to the content creation part of the workflow. So that's the basics of how the system works. So now we're going to move into a demo and a walkthrough. We're going to take a very quick look at the N8N workflow itself. Not too long because I cover that in more detail in the other videos. Talk about the Airtable base and how it's used, and then look at the different parts of the workflow from the Airtable point of view and the results that you get from it. So there's keyword research, keywords category strategy, keyword cluster strategy, an LLM cluster strategy, and an article writer. So I'll explain what all that means as we go along. First of all, let's take a look at the N8N workflow itself. This is it. As you can see, it's fairly big looking. It's not as imposing as it might seem because only one section is working at a time. So what I have here, and I'll blow it up just a little, we have the keyword research section. So here's where we're getting a request from Airtable, do some research for this keyword. It runs through this part of the workflow, which is the same as my previous keyword research workflow. The second part is doing strategy. So now you have a whole bunch of keywords. What do you do with them? You create a strategy. You have different types of strategy. There's one that's based on categorizing the keywords, where you categorize them as a authority builder, a quick win, that type of thing. And with each categorized keyword, you get an article title and a description, so you're ready to write the article. Similarly, there's a keywords cluster strategy where you're taking the data that was pulled in the first part of the workflow, so you're getting all that keyword data, putting it into this workflow, and creating a cluster strategy where you have a pillar article and supporting articles around it called subpages. You may have heard this referred to as a hub and spoke. I happen to use pillar and subpage. You can think of it however you want, but basically it's an article and supporting articles around it. Then finally, I have the LLM cluster strategy. So instead of using the actual keyword results from our keyword research, we just go basically to ChatGPT and say, here's my keyword, give me a cluster for it. Give me a pillar article and give me supporting subpages, sub-articles to go around it and support it. To be clear about what this part of the workflow is doing is giving you article titles, giving you actual titles of articles that you can write. So we've got a topic in mind, we've done keyword research at the top. Now we need something to do with those keywords other than stare at them in a screen. So what can we do? We can give them article titles, a description, so some data that's needed by the article writer to actually write them. I did mention this one strategy does not use those keywords. It just goes to ChatGPT and says, give me a cluster. But the same basic idea, you get back articles with titles, descriptions, all you need to send it to the article writer, which is down here. Now I do want to emphasize one thing that I've added to the workflow, and that is this research element. Previously there really was no research done, but if you want a timely article about something written in or about a topic in 2025, or you need the latest search results or a summary of them, I didn't have any way to do that in the previous workflow. Now I've added this research element, and what we're doing is taking the title of the article and converting it to a searchable term, giving that to Perplexity, and Perplexity is doing a search for it and returning the results. So the results is basically a report or an update, or it's like a report or a summary of everything you need to know about that topic. If you've used Perplexity before or any of the LLM search engines, you type in a search thing and you get back real information, not just a list of pages that you could go look at. So that's what this is doing. It's taking those search results and it's carrying them through all the rest of the workflow. There's 3 different types of article writers. They're all basically the same. So when you see here, this is the very modular approach that I used in my previous workflow. You've got a main body outline agent. It's creating an outline for the main body, the writer, intro writer, all of this stuff. If you have a cluster, you've got that pillar. So this part writes the pillar article. If it's a subpage of the pillar, this part writes that. And then if it's a categorized keyword, say it's a quick win or an authority builder, this part writes that. Again, all of the modules, or most of the modules are the same. The actual writing part are the same for all 3. In the 4th video, when I get into the article writer, I'll explain more about how I did the switching. So that's a quick view of the workflow itself. Now we're going to jump into Airtable and take a look at it and how you interface with the workflow. So here we are in Airtable. If you're not familiar with Airtable, it's sort of in between a spreadsheet and a database. You will need an Airtable account and you will need a paid Airtable account. The lowest level, it's Teams. I believe it's $24 or $25 a month. You will need that to use this workflow because that is where Airtable allows automation. What's happening is in Airtable there are status fields that you change and that triggers the workflow in N8N. That automation is part of the team plan that you need to make this work. You will need, again, an Airtable account and a paid subscription plan. When you get the workflow, you'll have a link to copy this base. Please copy the base. Don't ask me for access to it. I'd love to give it to you, but I found out the hard way that when I do that, I actually start paying for you. And so I had a case where I'd given a bunch of people access and had a big bill that month. And I don't really want to do that again. So when you click the link that you get with the workflow, it'll open this up and there'll be a button or a link and it'll say copy base. Please just copy it into your account and then you'll be good. Let's go through what we've got here. We're going to start with brand guidelines. These are guidelines that you may or may not have. If you're doing this for a brand and they know that the voice, they have a statement for that and the audience that they're interested in, the tone, you can use their information. If you're testing this out and using it for yourself, you can use ChatGPT or Claude or something to make this up. So you could just say, hey Claude, I'm a SEO agency and I'm creating content. I need you to give me a voice and an audience and tone, and it'll do that. That's actually what I did here. It does get used in the workflow throughout it, so it is important to fill at least these three in. Moving on to different tables, the master, all keyword variations, is where the data from the keyword research is stored. So you can see here, and this is one of the nice things with Airtable, is it's grouped. My primary keyword is AI automation, and if I twirl that down, I have 56 keywords. The type of keyword, whether it was related, a suggestion, idea, autocomplete, subtopic, or people also ask, the monthly search volume for that keyword, the search intent, keyword difficulty, competition, and CPC. So these are all things that I got from data for SEO in the first part of the workflow. The primary keywords is where you will create the interactions, at least the first interactions between Airtable and the workflow. And you do that by entering a primary keyword. So you can see here I've got AI automation. I've done the keyword research and done the different strategies on that. So strategy is complete. AI agent, which is what I'm going to use to demo this, is not started. So if you wanted to add a keyword like how to make a good hamburger, you would just press there and type in how to make a good hamburger and fill in the other stuff. You can see it defaults to United States, English 10 and 2. If you're not in the United States or you don't want results from the United States, you'll need to put in the right location. You'll need to check the data for SEO documents on that. There are two ways to enter the location. You can enter the name or a number. If you're doing it, for example, for Germany or something, I'm not sure if you could just put Germany or whether you'd have to put the name, but again, check data for SEO docs for that. But you need to fill in the location and the language, and then you don't need to worry about it throughout the rest of the workflow because wherever it's needed, it's pulled from here. Limit and depth. Limit is the number of search results you get for each kind of keywords. If you set this to 10, then it'll bring you back 10 of those. So you'll get 10 keyword ideas, 10 keyword suggestions. You want to always get 10. If the search keyword is very low volume, not a lot of searches, there won't be 10 keyword ideas or suggestions. So you may not see 10 there. If it's a search like best dog bed, then you would see way more than that if you didn't limit it. Limiting it to 10 or 20, I think, is a good place to be. In fact, I use 10 because if you use more than that, you're just getting a huge amount of data and a huge amount of content that you can create for one keyword. And you'll see in a moment that just using 10 for AI automation has given me about 50 different articles that I could write about it. So you can really cover the topic very, very well with a limit of 10. So I'd suggest 10. The depth is another thing that data for SEO uses in the related keywords API. It has to do with how many related keywords come back. So I'm going to skip article writer for a moment and go to the clusters. Here's the clusters content. And what you see here is the result of having run the keyword cluster strategy part of the workflow. And when I did that, it was for the keyword AI automation. It gave me 6 clusters. In each cluster, there are different amounts of, there's one pillar article and different amount of sub-page articles. So I've got 9, 7, 7, 6, 6, 6, whatever that adds up to, 40 or 50 or so. When I was saying before that when you run this strategy part, you get back the information you need to write an article, this is where that is. You get the article title, you get the article URL. This is a shortened version of the title. You'll need to check this because it does not check if it's creating duplicate URLs, but if you were going to post this or publish it to WordPress and you needed to send the URL, this would be what you could send. But again, you need to check that. You get a description, the primary keyword, and the article keyword. So all of that data gets sent over to the article writer and is used when you're actually writing the article. You have a similar table for keyword content. So I mentioned there's keyword categorization is what I meant to say there. And what it's doing is categorizing all of your keywords. So we had roughly 50 keywords related to or associated with AI automation. And the workflow categorized them, and so it's grouping them into different categories. So you've got authority builders. These are articles that might be hard to rank for but help your site with authority. So for like a real human, if they were at your site, they can see it and say, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about, sort of article. There are also emerging topics. So this is trying to get ahead of things where you might be writing an article that people aren't searching for right now but could be searching for 2 months from now, kind of thing. So you'll have content out there for it already. You've got intent signals. These are based on the keyword research that you get back, like people also ask, and autocomplete, where there's not any real search data, but we are looking, again, it's kind of like emerging topics, at saying, okay, these are articles that you could write to address specific user search intent. And then you have quick wins. If you have a brand new website, this would help you. These are keywords that have relatively high search volume and relatively low keyword difficulty. So that magic formula of sort of buy low, sell high kind of thing. So that's what the keyword content table is all about. And then we have the article writer. So this is where you actually write an article. You send articles from the clusters content table and the keyword content table, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But you send them over here, and then let's say you want to write an actual article. You would say here, it would come over as saying ready to write. You would click write article, and it would send it off to the workflow, which we're going to do that in a moment. So that's all the tables. I do have the SERP results table. I don't use it. I was going to delete it from the workflow, but I haven't. You can delete it, or if you can figure out something to do with it, you're of course free to do that. Keyword categories, so this is where all the categories get put, and the clusters. These two tables really, it was more for temporary storage. I don't even use the clusters table, so you don't really need to get into these two at all. All right, so let's go back to take a look at how we would write an article. Okay, let's go back to the beginning of how you would use the workflow and run through it. So let's say that we want to do keyword research for AI agent. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to set test workflow to on. I'm going to go back to here and say get keyword research. When I do that, it should trigger the workflow. It is executing workflow. We're getting related keywords. We're getting keyword suggestions, keyword ideas, autocomplete, subtopics. So subtopics are interesting, and you could do a whole workflow around this one. Data for SEO has a proprietary algorithm that says for a keyword, here are some subtopics you could create content about. I don't know how their algorithm works, but I believe the suggestions that it makes are pretty good, so you could actually expand on this and just create subtopic content. And then finally, it's getting the people also ask. So what that gave us is, first of all, we changed our status to keyword research complete, and then we go back here and look at our master keyword variations, and here now we have a primary keyword of AI agent, and all of these keywords are here now. They weren't there just a moment ago. You get the search volume, navigation, or the search intent, keyword difficulty, competition, and CPC for all of them. So basically what that did, and again my limit was set to 10, is went to data for SEO and got back 58 keywords. Now let's do the keywords cluster strategy. So I'm going to set this to test workflow. I'm going back to Airtable. I'm going to go back to my primary keywords table, and I'm going to do the keywords cluster strategy. So when I click that, it's going to trigger the workflow and it will run this part. Okay, so what it's doing now is it got all of the keywords, all 58, puts them into this AI agent for clustering, and now it created 5 clusters. is taking the clusters and creating article titles. Well, it's creating the pillar article title and other information needed, and then the subpages. So you'll see, there's 5 items that are input. That's 5 clusters. It's now run through 2. So I'm going to let this run, and when it gets finished, we'll go look at Airtable, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so it's running through Airtable now. We have 35 items, so that means we have 35 articles that we could write about AI Agent. So we're going to go ahead and jump over here to Airtable. We're going to jump into our clusters. I'm going to just twirl one of these open. This is one of the clusters that was created. The primary keyword was AI Agent. Again, it went and got all the keyword data for AI Agent, pulled that into the workflow, and created this cluster. So you've got a pillar article, top AI Agent companies and brands, and then these subpages were created as well. So I believe this is a AI Agent one as well. Best AI Agent Software and Platforms 2025 Guide. And you can see it's creating pretty good titles. You can change those if you want, but not too bad. And that's our pillar article, and then we've got 7 subpages. So that is the keyword clustering strategy has now been run. Let's say that we want to write an article now, and the way you do that is here in this status field, you change the status from TBD, which is its default state, to send to article writer. And what it does when you click send to article writer, this is an internal Airtable automation, not N8N related. It's all internal to Airtable. So when you change it to send to article writer, it's actually creating a new record in the article writer. And I'll show you that in just a moment. So let's say AI Agent Platform Tools and Software. If I go over here, I'll find that is a new cluster that's been added, and if we had sent over some subpage articles, those would be there as well. But let's go ahead and write this. This ought to be interesting. I'm going to go back here and say test workflow. So test workflow, and change the status from ready to write to write article. And it should come over here. And executing workflow, so I'll run you through this while it's writing. As I mentioned, the first part of this is to do this research, and that is we converted the title to a reasonable search query. Once that's done, it's sent to Perplexity Search, where Perplexity does, again, the same basic kind of search that you would do if you were using the interface directly. Is pulled into here, into these various AI agents, and they use it to do their piece of the work. So it has already gone through the main body outline. So this is the AI agent that creates the outline. It's now in the main body article writer, and so let me talk about that for a moment. And this is kind of cool and important. What I have found, and I think you've probably experienced it too, if you just say to any one of the LLMs, write me an article of 4,000 words, it doesn't do it. It just stops, or often it just stops, or it just doesn't write an article that's that long. And I wanted to be able to have the flexibility to create a long article if that's what I wanted. So what I did here is we have the main body outline. So, there are sections, H2s you might think of, and then they're sent over here to the main body writer, and instead of writing them all as one big group, it writes each section at a time. So this main body writer is focused only on that one section, and because of that, it can write really long content if that's what you wanted. As an example, prior to showing you this, I had the prompt such that it would write long articles, and it wrote a 13,000 word article about AI agents. So that's too long, but if you ever needed that, if you wanted to do a more formal paper or something, you could use this workflow to do that. But I have changed the prompts now, and now it's putting out roughly 3,000 word articles. So it made it through the workflow. It's added it to Airtable. I don't have it publishing anywhere else right now. But if we go back and look, here is our title that we selected right article. Now it's saying it's complete because it is. And then we can click right here and take a look at it. So it starts off with the key takeaways, nicely bolded information here. I think this prompting is much better than it was in my previous workflows. These key takeaways are much more engaging. We go from the key takeaways to introduction, and again you can see bolding throughout, bullet points to make it easy to read on the internet. Now we're into the main body, so here's the first section. But you can see in general there's a quote here. It's written a really good article that's easy to read on the internet. And what I have found in the past when I tried to do that, it shortened the content too much. But right now this is outputting again roughly 3,000 words. There's this little thing there. I have to go in and fix that somehow in one of the prompts, but I'm not going to do that right now. So that got us through the entire workflow from making the first keyword research request to writing an actual article. So that is in general the workflow in the demo. So I want to move now to how do you get the workflow, and this is it. It's pretty simple. It's available in the What AI community. All you have to do is join, and for the price of the monthly membership you'll get this workflow and many others. So the workflow will be available exclusively in the community. I will not be putting it on Gumroad. It's only available in the community. And just to tell you a tiny bit about the community, it's an engaged community of AI enthusiasts and creators who are there trying to help each other figure out how to create workflows, learn about how to do it, collaborate in doing it, and then how do you make money doing this stuff. There's people who are just now learning, and N8N ambassadors, which if you don't know are people who have been selected by N8N to represent their brand because they really know what's going on with N8N. And speaking of that, my partner in the community is Alex Kim. He is an N8N ambassador and a coder and a developer, and him and I are put this community together, and we're doing some other stuff. You know, if you join, you get access to Alex and me. But it's about sharing knowledge, providing support, collaborating, making partnerships. We have weekly support calls, a workflow collaboration where we build a workflow that's voted on by the community every month. So a lot of stuff going on. The workflow will be there. It's a simple sign up for a monthly membership and you get the workflow. So I just want to do a quick review. As I mentioned, I had a basic block diagram. This has a tiny bit more stuff in it. And again, we're coming from Airtable. We're going through the switch. We determine what kind of information we want. Is it keyword research? Is it a strategy? Is it to write the article? And if it is keyword research, we're going to use data for SEO and get this type of data back and use that later. There are 3 types of content strategy: keyword categorization, so that's the authority builders and quick wins. There's database clustering, which is what I used in the demo, and then there's LLM clustering, similar to how you would use ChatGPT or Claude or one of the LLMs. You just say create a cluster for this and it does it, and it does a good job. So you could take a look at the database clustering versus LLM, maybe use a combination of both. And then finally there, of course, is the article writer that uses the brand guidelines. It does research, and then it has the modular pieces that write the article for you. So where you would go from here, you will see a next video sort of thing up in the top. That's the complete setup and another review of how to use it. If you got through this, you may not need the basic usage guide, but definitely the setup. I'm going through how to set up Airtable and Perplexity and data for SEO and the credentials and that kind of stuff there. And then videos 3 and 4 are deeper dives into the different sections of the workflow. Join the community, get the workflow, watch the complete setup, and you should be good to go to actually use it. If you want to know more about how it works, videos 3 and 4 will be there for that. All right, so thank you. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. I know people say that all the time, but it really does make a difference. Thanks again for watching. Look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye-bye.